From the Fox 10 Gulf Stream, this is Next Weather.
All right, Saturday is June 1st, and you know what that means? The official start to the Atlantic Basin hurricane season.
And of course, we're getting ready here at Fox 10 here on Next Weather. We've been talking about it pretty much nonstop for the past few days, and of course, we're preparing for our hurricane special. I want to take a look at this. Of course, these are the names that we have for the upcoming season, Alberto all the way to William. We've been talking a lot about the seasonal forecast and what does it mean, but I want to take a look back. So first of all, let's go back to 2023. And Jason, what do you see about all of these? This was a good thing for us.
Right. We saw some systems, but most of them were in the Atlantic, but the steering flow much different than what we expect this year. And also the systems that were in the Gulf were not all that strong.
Yeah, we had Idalia, the one big kind of red letter storm of the season, and that of course made landfall in the Big Bend, and it was a serious storm. This was an active season. There were a lot of question marks this season because we had El Nino, which is of course, you know, a suppressive thing for the Atlantic, typically reduces hurricane activity. But in this case, we had such warm water that we were able to get a higher number of storms there. And of course, Idalia being the big one. I want to look back though, and you might recognize some of these names, of course. These are some of our historical hurricanes in our area. Of course, a lot of big names that people will remember.
Yes, I was here for Hurricane Danny and Hurricane Sally. Danny, I wasn't actually on air. I was a kid then, but looking at Sally, went right through the area. Dennis, almost a forgotten storm. Ivan, one of the bigger ones. Frederick, probably the biggest, was a Cat 4 when it hit Dauphin Island.
For me, it's Ivan is a storm when I was a kid, and then Sally is one that really I remember, of course, very much so. I born, raised in Fairhope, so that was a big storm for me. And Ivan, that thing goes right over my house. The center of the eye went right over my house. Apparently, the story is that my dad took me outside during the eye, and we looked up at the stars. I have no recollection of that, but I do have recollection of feeling the door shaking during Hurricane Ivan. I have very good memories of that. And then I remember Katrina, which you can kind of see Katrina on the edge here, actually behind you.
Way over here.
Which, of course, we saw so many impacts from Katrina, and I remember that as well. Especially, I remember watching Us all the way back then on our little TV set. John Ed Thompson talking about it, you know, this memory that goes all the way back. Hurricanes are just a way of life, of course, for us here on the Gulf Coast. Speaking of major hurricane landfalls, here's something we've been showing this every once in a while. You mentioned Frederick is kind of the storm of record, though.
Yeah, you can see, and it's not just how strong it was, but where it hit. This is the last major hurricane that had a major impact on Mobile County. See, Ivan came in a little bit further east, so it had a major impact on Baldwin County and Pensacola, but Mobile County got the easy side of Ivan, and what you don't want to see is the eye wall or everything in the northeast quadrant. Opal was a bad one for Destin.
Yes, and of course that's an older storm, 1995. I want to direct your attention to this though. 2005, we had Dennis. We also had Katrina, which did major impacts. I actually pulled in the 2005 hurricane season track, so we can take a look at this. We had a couple interesting storms and kind of how that hurricane season happened. It was a very active season. We started with Arlene, which was a kind of border, kind of pretty Okie, Orange Beach landfall, kind of an early season kind of storm.
Tropical storm, right?
Yes. Cindy was a hurricane.
Yes, and we had major damage from piers and wharves and different things along Mobile Bay from Cindy. And that's what got everybody's attention ahead of Katrina.
Yes, and actually that's a good thing. It kind of reminds me, like, kind of your minimal hurricanes can still do damage. Things like Nate, a bit more recently, did a lot of pier damage over there. And then, of course, Dennis got us rolling.
Very, very small storm, very small wind field, just a small section of beach.
Eye wall being about just that. I mean, Gulf breeze, Navarre. That was it.
Yeah, it was an early season storm. Oceanic heat content increased, though, in time for Katrina.
And then, of course, we all know the impacts of that one here. And we've been talking about the seasonal forecast. It was nice to take a look back, but yes, we know that these numbers are high. It's our job to keep track of it all, and we, of course, will, as always.
Definitely, and so a normal season, and this doesn't mean we see 14 named storms in Mobile, Pensacola, or 7 on average hurricanes. And that's the number we would see in the entire Atlantic Basin. So this is for the Caribbean Sea, the Gulf, and the Atlantic. But what we're seeing is, you know, the reason why Nicholas was showing 2005, it was a super active year, and this year we're in that zone with the predictions. We're talking way above normal activity.
Yes, and these predictions are based on all these climate models, all these things where it's good forecast, it's good data. We have the ability to see these kinds of things. We have the ability to see these long-term patterns. And I have to give credit to Colorado State. They're an organization, of course, NOAA, but Colorado State, when you go and look, you can look up their hurricane season forecast reviews. They do not miss. A lot of people think they do. They have a really good record overall of these hurricane forecasts. So really interesting stuff there. And that's why they're looking at these things and saying, okay, this might be an active year.
And one thing I want to touch on too is that, you know, water temperatures in the Atlantic Basin are hotter than ever. They're hotter than they were last year. We've got a La Nina year, which means the upper level winds are likely going to be favorable for storm formation. But talking about the hot water temperatures, this is not a political statement that we're making. This is just a scientific fact that the water temperatures are warmer than they've ever been. And you add in, you know, last year we had warm water temperatures, but we didn't have the upper environment that we expect to see this year. So this could be a bad hurricane season for some areas.
And you talk about long-term stuff. This is a result of those patterns that we're looking at. These are kind of I don't want to say shorter range patterns, because when you look at history of the earth, it's long, but there are certain patterns where especially the ocean waters in the Atlantic go through warmer phases. We have been in this warmer phase for a long time, and this is just kind of peaking, kind of, if you will. It's
not just where it's warm, it's not just how warm it is, but it's where it's warm that's really adding into the equation here.
So interesting stuff there. All right.
Well, thanks for joining us. Yeah, are we done?
Yeah. No, we got to do your 7-day forecast.
Oh, let's do it. Why not? Because it is the weekend. So, all right, here we go. And, you know, this is going to be a more conversational thing, by the way. If you've been joining us for Next Weather, we want to make it a little more insightful, more of a deeper dive. It's going to be off the cuff, ad lib. And so hopefully that was a little more relaxing to watch. And so anyway, I don't know if it's easy to get relaxing or to watch about more tropical activity. But anyway, here we go. Your 7-day forecast, Saturday, June 1st, the start of our tropical season. Rain chance 80%, 50% Sunday, and then we go isolated next week. And we're going to be updating this stuff throughout the tropical season. We'll have these deep dives where we take a look at historical storms. We look at the upper environment steering flow of specific storms as they come along this year too. Thanks for joining us for Next Weather.